No! No! Drop it! Drop it!
Well, if you got a dollar, well, just lousy down. You know that I got rhythm that could suit your budget fine.
Hey, this is Patrick with Trusty Huckster Mercantile. Welcome to my channel. Wanted to hop on and do a quick haul video. I unfortunately did not get a chance to film anything from where I got all these items because I was attending my first live auction in over a year. Well, maybe not quite over a year. There obviously, because of COVID, there have not been a lot of live auctions available. I've done some online auctions. I've done some local online auctions where I could pick up the items. But this is the first time in quite some time, and actually in even recent memory, that I was in an indoor auction. I did an outdoor farm auction right at the beginning of COVID. But this was an indoor auction with a live auctioneer and other members in the audience with the bidding paddles and everything. And it was not an online auction at all. So the only competition were people that had left proxy bids when they looked at the items and those of us who were in the room. And I had a blast. I got a bunch of things that I probably had no interest or need in buying, but it was fun to pick things up because auction fever is a real thing. I probably overpaid for a couple of the items, but again, auction fever is a real thing. And I had so much fun, it doesn't even matter. And some of the things I got were so inexpensive that it all kind of balances out in the end. So the auction was held somewhat local to me, about a half hour away from me, far western suburbs of Chicago, in a town called Caneville. Not even sure you could still consider it a suburb, but regardless, they do auctions about once a month. This, they kept saying, was their first one of the year. Well, it was only the first week of January, so that wasn't that big of a stretch, but they do only do one a month. So it was a mixed bag, some collectible items, some farm items, a lot of industrial, a wide variety, some garbage, some, well, you know, everything's in the eye of the beholder. Things that I did not feel had a lot of value. And there were actually some very high-end items. Items that this one was a Pepsi, a very large Pepsi porcelain sign. Opening bid was $400. So there were actually some high-end items there as well. So I was unable to film. I probably could have, but I didn't want to ask permission, and I really was still kind of figuring out the lay of the land. Maybe I'll record it a later one. So I didn't get any actual filming done at the site, but I wanted to show you some of the items that I picked up behind me. So, starting things off, I will probably show you one of the best items that I picked up at a reasonable price, not necessarily a super low price, but I definitely will be able to resell this and make some money on it, either on eBay or possibly even one of my live sales. It is a Viking Epic line swung glass. It has the petals down at the bottom, a nice rounded bulb of a body, and it is 17.5 inches tall. It has the amberina, so you've got the lighter color around the edges, as well as the lighter color down at the bottom. Beautiful piece. And the way the auction worked in several of the lots, and this happened to be one of them, they combined a couple of items that were being lotted together, and then you had a choice. So this was paired with its mate of a candy bowl. This was the one that I was after, so we bid this one up. Once I was the successful bidder for this one, I took this. The underbidder had the chance to get the candy bowl for the same price. The underbidder chose not to do so, so they started the bidding again, and as would be expected, that piece sold for a little bit less, and then the bidder got that piece. There were some lots that ran, I think the most was, there was one that had 5 choices. So it did get a little confusing after a while. There was one set, there was multiple, I think 4 lots of jewelry, like kind of mixed bag jewelry, that I was actually interested in one of them because there was a Trifari brooch, there was a Monet brooch, there were a couple of brooches mixed in with a lot of necklaces, modern jewelry, earrings, things like that. It was one of the 4. It ended up going for what I felt was too high of a price, so the bidder got their first choice. Well, once they picked the bin, I couldn't tell which bin was left. So even when they opened the bidding to start bidding for the next bin again, I couldn't even decide if I wanted to bid on it because I couldn't figure out if they took the one I wanted or if the one I wanted was still there. So need to take some better notes next time, have a better idea of how to pick and choose between them. But the choice between the vase and the candy dish was fairly straightforward. And it was a great little pickup, and I was glad that I got the Viking Swung glass. In a completely separate lot, there was another glass multi-lot, and that ended up being 2 of these Moon and Stars Compotes. So this one was the amber. They also had one in the Delphite, the blue, the ice blue color. The ice blue color, which theoretically should be worth more, had a chip on the bottom. And I was actually somewhat interested because the bidding ended up going fairly high. The person who won the bidding took the blue. I was the underbidder and chose not to take this at the same price. So they started the auction over, and I was successful in getting the amber one. And I was curious if they had noticed that there was a chip, because it definitely went higher, unless they were buying it for themselves. But they were buying a lot of stuff for resale. It definitely went higher than they should have paid in order to resell it. But, you know, everything is sold as is, where is. You're responsible for doing all the inspections ahead of time. This one was in perfect condition, so this is the one that I picked up, and I was pretty happy with the price I paid for it. There was another glass lot, which had some EAPG mixed into it. And the bidding for that ended up going after winning bidder ended up going after one specific piece. This piece was left behind, and I wasn't particularly interested in it. And what I was intrigued by is this was then one of many items that once the bidding was done, particularly for the non-chosen choice lots, they would clear it, and they said, okay, we'll clear that for the friendly auction at the end. What's that? So I almost left at one point because I had marked all the items that I was interested in. There was maybe 24 items left after the last item from what I wanted sold. And so I'm like, oh, I can probably just go ahead and check out, beat the rush. I'm like, well, wait, I don't know what that friendly auction is. Well, friendly auction was kind of fun because what they ended up doing was they took this item along with probably 36 other lots that did not sell and kind of laid them out on the table. It turned out that what they were doing was organizing it by the consignor, so that some of the items that were not paired together initially had to get repaired, in the end. And they started doing auctions for combined lots. And so basically by that point, there were literally only maybe 10 of us left in the building. And so we just stood around the table. They just said, okay, anybody want this for $10, $8, $6, $4, $2. And when they got down and they still couldn't get things for $2, they started combining the lots. You want these 2 lots for $2. So you ended up getting, in some cases, you ended up picking up things you may not necessarily have wanted. And to be perfectly honest, that's where this comes in. I don't know what it is. I'm doing a little bit of research on it. I do believe it's EAPG. I do think it's fairly early. There's some really nice detail to it. And all of the molding in here has been accented with gold. But a lot of the gold has started to wear, as a piece that would be over 100 years old would be expected to do. It is actually in perfect condition. There's no chips, there's no cracks. So it's a great piece from that perspective. But it's actually very heavy. And I don't think it goes for a particularly high value. So this is going to be one of those cases that because the shipping cost is so much, it's going to limit the number of people I can sell this to. So this may just end up in a live sale at an inexpensive price, or it's entirely possible it'll show up in a mystery box for somebody who's local, because it's probably 3 or 4 pounds all by itself. But it's kind of a cool piece. Not particularly valuable. I still haven't found this particular piece, but things of this size in this green with the gold accents of this age, they're probably going to sell between 15 and 25 bucks. So I'll definitely more than make up the money that I picked it up for, because I didn't even get this by itself. I got this as part of a lot with other items I did want, and this was just kind of thrown into the mix. One of the first items that I picked up was actually really got me into and why I started having a lot of fun, because it was relatively early in the auction. So I really had been able to watch some of the lots sell and watch some of how the people were handling, particularly the choice, just to kind of get an idea of what was going on. And it actually ended up being a box lot that I was interested in that ended up being part of the choice. Now, what's important to note about that is I didn't know about this choice thing when the auction or when I first started looking at the lots. I simply found a box that had some items in it that I liked and I was interested in it. So all of a sudden it got put up on the table along with 3 other sets and it became choice. So the bidding started, the bidding skyrocketed past what I was willing to pay for this particular lot. And that was when I started realizing, again, how this was working. So there was one lot, it ended up being a set of copper fire hose nozzles, antique fire hose nozzles. That ended up being the piece that everyone wanted. That got the big dollar amount. They started the rebidding again, and I was able to pick up my lot for less than I had my maximum what I maxed or what I was the maximum price I was thinking I would be willing to pay. And so what it actually was a mixed lot. So these copper ladles, alcohol heating ladles, they all are marked. This one says whiskey. There's a little dent on that one. There's a slightly smaller one that says rum and a slightly smaller one that says brandy. I'm guessing that these would have been kind of a tavern item. You would have had your brandy in this. It's a long enough handle. You could have held that into the fire to warm your brandy and then I'm assuming pour it into a glass because I don't think you'd then want to put the copper metal against your lips. So I think this is the reason the handle's so long is it is considered a warming ladle as opposed to a dipping ladle, which is what they announced it as. I don't know how big of a vat of brandy you would have that you would have to have this long of a handle to dip into the cask if you're in a tavern. But regardless, whatever they are, I thought they were pretty cool. I think I'll be able to definitely make my money just based on those 3, that set of 3. But then the other thing that was in there, which I also liked, was this pair of, I wasn't 100% sure what they were, but these pair of beakers. Once I got them home, I was able to clean off the bottom or, wipe down the bottom enough to read. These are Valero Spain electroplated brass. So I cannot find this shape. I found the Valero, made in Spain. I found the electroplated brass EPB in a lot of different pieces. Most of them were footed, more like wine or wine flutes or champagne flutes or wine goblets. I didn't find anything that was like this. So I thought these were just kind of a cool industrial look. Even, if you just had that kind of the rusty, crusty, and dusty going on, if nothing else, you could even turn these upside down and become a platform or a riser for something else. I just thought these were kind of a bonus, and I think I'll make my money off of the ladles, and then whatever I make on this will be pure profit, and I think these will sell for a decent price as well. This one I took a little bit of a rider on because this actually ended up being a piece that initially I thought was part of a bigger lot. Again, take into consideration that when I previewed all the items, I was kind of looking at what I liked, what I didn't like. This one had a price, or I'm sorry, a lot number on it with the C. I didn't realize what that meant. I thought this was part of the massive lot, and the rest of the lot had some pretty nice items in it, but so many, I figured that the entire thing was going to go for too high of a price. This ended up getting pulled out by itself. And so they were doing the choice and people picked the other items first, this was able to go for a very reasonable price. So I decided to take a chance on it. As it turns out, it is marked Pressman Toy Company, and it does say made in the USA. It also says 1153, which I think means it was made in November 1953. I could be totally off by that, but I do believe this is a mid-century piece. But what I found when I had more time to research it, I can't find this. I found tons of these are metal. I found ton of the Pressman metal Chinese checkers boards. Very few of them are round, and the ones that are round, very few of them have these designs on them. And the designs are just super cool. I mean, just look at that tree, the boat, the mountains. It is just a neat looking piece. Even if you don't play Chinese checkers, hang this on the wall. You've got a great decorative piece, that black background with the gold. The paint is actually in really good condition. It's got a few, marks to indicate, sign of its age, but most people know how to play Chinese checkers. I don't know if there's a new name for it. I don't know if that's no longer considered, if that's a cultural appropriation of the term, but I apologize if it is. It's the only term I know for this game. But whatever the game is called, this is a pretty cool board for it. And I'm not going to say it's rare or scarce, but I will say I could not find any on Etsy. I could not find any on eBay, and I could not find any on WorthPoint. That's leaning toward rare, or at least scarce. So I'll do a little bit more digging because I don't know why so many others are coming up multiple and multiple times, why this one would be the odd man out. So maybe there's something special about it. Maybe it was made at for a minimal period of time. I have no idea, but was very happy picking this thing up by itself because I was able to pick it up at a reasonable price, and hopefully we'll be able to flip it for a decent profit, either on eBay or in one of my live sales. This is probably one of the pieces that at the end of the day, once I looked at my receipt and I realized what I paid for this, I may have overpaid for this. As a lot of auctions tend to do, they tend to go a little fast, particularly when you were dealing with choice. And I thought I bid one price for this, and it turns out I bid higher than that. I still think I'll be able to make my money, but probably not much more than what I paid. But that's okay. It's still a fun piece. It is a Bunnykins feeding bowl by Royal Doulton. And it's very clearly marked, so you know exactly what you're getting. It's fairly easy to research, at least from the pattern. What's throwing me, and I do need to do a little bit more research on this, is it is the Bunnykins brand, I guess, the Bunnykins cartoon. But this is not the most common design. You can see there's a little post box that disturbingly has eyeballs, and there is like a little elf-like creature who is delivering the mail. And then there's a bird, taking off. I found some references that this is the postman pattern. Okay. The problem is there is the postman pattern cereal bowl, and then there's this. This is very, very heavy. Now, it is formed like one of the type that you would fill with hot water, and then it would hold the water so that it would keep whatever you have in it warm. This is not one of those, but it does have a very wide base. And so I found one reference, not with this pattern, but I found one reference to this shaped bowl as a feeding bowl. And I don't know if that was something, because this would be, I think if a child is learning to feed themselves, it's very heavy and it would not tip over. That maybe the idea was they could get their spoon in there and it's heavy enough that it wouldn't move around, or it's kind of meaty, you could hold on to it and you could serve the child from here. But there's similar patterns, and the Bunnykins also have a cereal bowl. And if you look at the profile, it's more like a traditional bowl. So it tapers down a little bit. The base isn't that big. Perfectly useful piece. It's typically part of the 3-piece set with the mug, the plate, and the bowl. So that's what a lot of them are listed as, and those don't really sell for all that much money. The feeding bowl, though, I've got to figure out. So if it sells for about the same as the cereal bowl, I'll be lucky to break even. Hopefully it'll sell for a little bit more. It is a cool piece. It's in pristine condition. And I don't know, I kind of like the postman design with a little disturbing pepper shaker eyeball postman, post office. But regardless, do a little bit more research for this one. But this ends up being my kind of lesson learned. I definitely paid more than I thought I did. And it's simply because as everything was moving on and as they were clearing things out, I wasn't sure where we were. Lesson learned. I need to pay a little bit more attention and not have the fear of missing out. I could have let this go, but I'm glad I got it. It'll be a nice piece to add. Probably this one will go on to Etsy. Be a nice piece to add to my Etsy collection because I think it will be more of a collector's item, but not going to be a big money maker. Oh well. On the other hand, there are some items I got for less than I thought I paid for. So this one was either a clerical error or I was simply confused about what was going on. But I was willing to pay up. I was willing to pay up for this. This is a beautiful salt glazed stoneware in the dark brown. These beautiful jewel medallions. I mean, it's all pottery, but kind of those medallions, jeweled medallions in the middle. A pewter lid, stamp maker's mark on the bottom. No chips, no cracks, perfect condition. I had an idea of what I was willing to pay for this. I thought that's what I bid, and I actually was significantly underneath that. And this was, I believe, the one. What ended up happening was I think a couple people got confused because there was. I think this might have been the first. Maybe this was the first time the entire group was being bid on, and it was a case where a lot of people were interested. So a lot of hands went up, and the bidder, the auctioneer was like, okay, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. And so I think he like raced past where any of us had anticipated stopping, and then realized that whoever he had stopped at on 30 had no intention of bidding at 30. They brought their hand up when they thought it was 5. So they had to kind of back their way down, and at the end of the day, I think people just got confused of what they were doing or where they were bidding on. I was able to pick this up for a really nice price, about half of what I was willing to pay for it. So I was really happy. I do need to do a little bit of research because the name on the bottom I could not read while I was there. So I needed to get my loop out. I need to do a little bit more digging to see exactly what this piece is. But it's a beautiful piece. If it weren't the dark brown, I'd probably keep it in my own collection. But I do like this type of salt glaze stoneware, particularly the fact that it's got the pewter lid. I do think that this is going to resell for a pretty penny. Definitely well more than what I paid for it. So super excited to pick this up, and it kind of counterbalance paying more for for the other item. What you will often find in at least this type of an auction is the auctioneer has staff has created lots that they think might be somewhat related. And I learned actually throughout the process of this one is that in some cases the lots were based on who the consignor was, because at one point they had an entire thing of train sets. They had boxcars, and they had the engines, and they had a whole thing of cabooses, and they had like the little tin buildings to go along with it. And they just all these cool pieces, and several of them were set together as choice, so you could pick and choose. But there was a set of tracks. And at one point somebody asked, well, did you forget the tracks? And they said, oh no, those we have to sell separate because those actually belong to somebody else. It just happened that somebody was selling the tracks while someone else was selling all the buildings and stuff. So in some cases, if somebody has a mixed lot, if it's a clear out or however they're doing it, they'll try and combine a lot of the items from the same seller. And if they're small ticket items, they'll just combine until they make a lot that they think will sell. Well, one of the lots that I was interested in had probably 7 or 8 items in it. And of those items, I only wanted 2. These 2. And I was super excited when I picked this up because it was another case where these were part of a choice. The prices were going up. People were getting, and then they were going after other boxes. But unlike the jewelry, I could see which box had this item in it. I made my notes that these were the 2 pieces I wanted because I had already had my black light out, and I could already tell that this was that this glowed, and it was a salt dip or nut cup a shape that I'd not seen before. So definitely wanted that. But this was what I was really after. Check this out. It is not porcelain. It is cased glass. You've got a cobalt liner cased in white milk glass that has been cut down to the blue. Check that out. I've never seen anything like it. I have no idea what it is. The discussion at the auction was that it was bohemian. I could totally live with that. But beyond that, because it's glass, it's not stamped. I question. I don't even think there's a pontil there. So, but I don't feel any mold lines either. But I don't even know how you cut. Sometimes you can cut to clear. So I guess this is cut to blue. I guess that's what you would consider this. I don't know. I've just never seen anything like this. I think this was a really cool piece. And what I'm hoping to be able to resell this for will pay for the entire lot, because this was the main thing I wanted out of it. This I'll be able to sell, but these aren't big ticket makers. If I resold this for what I plan to, I probably won't even recoup the cost of the lot. I'm really hoping that this is what's going to send me over the edge. So if you actually know anything about these, I would love to hear about it. Unfortunately, again, because of some of its age, the gold along some of the edges is starting to wear a little bit. But I would just say that that's really nice, indication of patina, indication of its age. I hate to say it, I don't like to carry things that are damaged, but there's no chips, there's no cracks, there's no flea bites. I mean, just look at the inside of that cobalt rim. It's just absolutely like it was made yesterday. And just check out the bullseye. You can see on the inside, the way that light comes through. Just a very unique piece. I love that cobalt blue. I just think there is going to be a market for this. I just kind of have to figure out how to sell it, because I don't even know what terms to use. I'm assuming it's a toothpick holder, but this is some toothpick holder. Another mixed lot that I picked up had, some things in it that'll probably just go straight to Goodwill. But there were a couple pieces sitting down at the bottom that were what I was pretty much chasing after. And they're all sewing items. So this is a Dritz sewing gauge. I don't know how old the Dritz name is, so this may not be particularly old, but it is metal. So it's actually it's fairly high quality. I think that this would be a usable item for anyone who is a sewer right now. This piece, though, has more age to it. This is a white sewing machine, white rotary electric sewing machine, a good sewing rule. It is a 6-inch ruler that appears to be, I guess it's wood, but it's very thin wood, but I don't think it's plastic. Yeah, I think it's wood. Use this rule and guide your work to a white sewing machine. Since 1876, the servant of the well-dressed woman. So I just think for anyone who has a sewing collection, this would just be a neat little piece. It would be functional, but it's also just kind of it would be a kind of a cool display piece. Be fairly easy, lightweight. You can hang it, include it into a shadow box, whatever you wanted to do with it. I just thought that was kind of a fun piece. And then similarly, unfortunately, there's a little bit of damage to the box, but Satina makes ironing easy. Makes ironing easier, because ironing is never easy. No sticking, no pulling, just add to any starch. So it's kind of like a starch additive. So I've never heard of it, Satina, but it's just a cool old box, and there's actually some of the product is still in there. Don't think that adds to its value at all, but it is kind of a neat piece. Clothes smell fresher. So there's all kinds of stuff on here. Boiled Satina starch. Unboiled Satina starch. It was manufactured by General Foods, and the address given does not have a zip code, so it makes it prior to World War II. Anyway, just kind of a cool piece. So again, this lot, actually, I think I picked this one up toward the end. So I was able to get this for relatively inexpensive, because really this was all I wanted out of there. But I was able to pay less for it, so that by picking these up, I should be able to recoup my cost and make some additional money, even though none of these are big ticket items. These were another kind of a last minute pickup. They at one point were letting you pick and choose between how you combined some of the lots. And I thought, for the price that they were dropping them down to, I was willing to give these a shot. I don't do well with creamers and sugars. I believe these are platinite, because they're the milk glass of the white on the bottom and then full color on both the outside and the inside. I want to say platinite. I want to say that makes them Fire King, but they are not marked. So I do have to do a little bit of digging on that one. I could be wrong. But again, ended up being a fairly low price, and they're in perfect condition, that I figured they were kind of a fun pickup, and maybe just something that they're pretty color. They'd be a fun addition for a low price point for one of my live sales, for people that are not looking for big ticket items. This lot really should end up being a primer to the auctioneer, that you have to be careful with how things are packaged together and how you're combining lots, because These are 3 individual pie tins. So we've got pies by Fasano, but you can see it's got the old-fashioned phone number on there. We also have an LJ. Gotta look this one up. I've actually sold this one before. I can't remember what it stands for. And then there's also a Case Moody Pies. I've not had this one before. So, and then that one is actually, Case Moody is actually spelled correctly when you look from the back. So these are all pie tins. These are all, this is definitely a metal pie tin. The others might be aluminum, although these might be steel. I'll have to pull out a magnet. I've sold this one before, and I'll just be honest, I was shocked at how well these sell and how much they sell for. So I would have had these on my radar had I seen them initially, but they were in a lot with a bunch of other stuff, a bunch of kitchen materials, or, paraphernalia sitting down at the bottom, and I did not see it until they got pushed to the end and they had the leftover items. And all of a sudden I saw these and I jumped on them because what I paid for all 3 of them is less than what this one will sell for by itself. So I'll remake my money just based off of this one, based on what I've already sold this for. And then I've got these other 2, which even if they're not as valuable as this one, they're lightweight, they're easy to ship, they're not super easy to photograph because they're a little shiny, but they're branded, so they're easy to search. So for that people are doing this type of collections, there's some good pieces, and I should be able to flip them, hopefully, fairly quickly. The last item I'm going to share ends up kind of being a good example of the humor of what ends up happening when you're after one individual piece, but you actually end up caught at the end of the friendly auction where things are being combined. You suddenly get stuff that you don't want. So this piece I was looking for, I was not willing to pay for it based on in the original auction. It was going for too much money, but it is a Myatt Son and Company England. It is an ironstone square open vegetable bowl. It's not going to be huge bucks, which is why I wasn't super interested in adding it at its original price. But once they started splitting things up and then over combining things, I was able to get this along with a couple of the other items I've already shown you that were some fun lots that I will be able to resell. But I think it's only fair to show when you get the wheat, sometimes you get the chaff. And the chaff in this case is going to bring me night terrors. So not only do we have one of those porcelain-headed doll things, it's broken. So it's disturbing on many levels. So not only is it going to burn its eyes into your soul, it's going to judge you for breaking it. So I did not break this. This is broken. I don't even know if there's any value to this. I haven't even tried to look up because that just means I'm going to be filling my feed with pictures of doll heads, and my nightmares are bad enough on its own. What's unfortunate is the way, from what little I know about doll heads, the information would have been written across the back of this top plate. And because it's been broken off, there's really almost nothing left. The only thing that I think is left is maybe a slash mark and then maybe a 0 or an O. I don't know if that means anything because I think at least in one place they're supposed to indicate their height. So maybe it's a 10 to indicate 10 inches, maybe. But I don't know how those are measured because this part is actually the way it's supposed to be. So you see the hole, that would have been how you would have tied this to the rest of the cloth body, and then you would have stuffed it. So I'm not sure what the measurement's actually measuring. 10 inches can't be anything to do with just the head, but maybe it's supposed to go onto a 10-inch doll. I don't even know if that's a 10. I have no idea. If anyone knows anything about these dolls, I believe it is German. That's where a lot of these are made. I do believe there's some age to it. It has the bisque on the inside, but the entire outside actually does have a high gloss glaze, but I don't know if that makes it earlier or later. It's just a doll head, and it's disturbing. And then the other piece that I picked up probably equally disturbing. But, you know, you get the lot, and they don't like people leaving things behind. So I've heard of that at auctions too, where there's like a left behind table that you could put stuff and people would pick up for free. They didn't offer that here, so you had to take everything that you got in your lot, which means I also got these. Hello. So they're disturbing, but I also find them somewhat intriguing. So this one is the fox body with the paws. Even the little claws are still on there. All 4 paws are there. There's a tassel on the front and the back, which I believe is what you're then supposed to do when you're messing with this as your neck piece or whatever you're using them. The mouth does open, and you have a stole. Now, this, you'd have to have a pretty small neck to do this one all by itself. So it may be what this one is then combined with, but this one has only, it has a little thing kind of in the middle, not with the paws. The front paws are missing, and this one does not have a clip in its mouth. So this one may be incomplete. I don't know. I don't even know what I'm going to do with these other than let Huck play with them. My plaster bobblehead doll. Yeah, maybe I'll put these with him. People, like he caught something today. I have no idea. You get it. Like I said, you get the lot as you get the lot. And, you know, maybe these will end up going into a theater production at some point. I can donate it to the theater. Or you too could be somebody's best friend. Hello. So that's it. I did actually get a few other things. I didn't want this to become too long, so I really just picked the highlights of it. I have a lot of the superfluous stuff that, in some cases, some of them will end up in my mystery boxes, which, you know, 2 thumbs way up. I always need stuff for my mystery boxes. In other cases, they're too big or too heavy to ship. There's not enough value. It'll probably just go straight to Goodwill. But that's fine too. You know, that's a good charity, and I'm more than happy to recycle all those items in. The auction was a fantastic, it was a great experience. It was very well run. There were, you know, some friendly people there. There was not a lot of bickering, or, you know, there was competition. There were a couple pieces that there was one that I absolutely loved. It was a German Deco era cigarette set that had a clock, and it had a little, the cigarette box with a little dog on it, and then it had the set of ashtrays, and it had a decoed woman sitting, smoking a cigarette, all as figurine. It was a great piece, and I'm like, okay, I'm willing to pay up to $50 for this, because I think I could probably turn it around for maybe $85. And it ended up going for, I think, over $100. So yay to whoever picked it up, and maybe it's worth way more. In the short period of time after I saw it, I looked for it and I couldn't find it, so I didn't really have specifically how much it could go for, but it was a really cool piece. So they had some really neat stuff in there, but then they also had some run-of-the-mill, you know, everyday kitchen items. So it was a nice mix. It was a fun time. Had nothing else to do on a Saturday night, which, you know, was just a little sad commentary on my life. But it gave me something to do, gave me a place to hang out, and I will definitely be going back. So thank you so much for hanging out, watching this video. If you saw anything you like, let me know. Like I said, I'll probably end up going into eBay, Etsy, or maybe one of my live sales coming up. But if you know you want it, reach out to me. If we can work out a price, I'm more than happy to sell it to you privately in advance. So thanks so much for your time. Thanks for putting your trust in Trusty Huckster, and I will talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.
Well, show me a sign if you're wishing me to stay. Otherwise, I say goodbye, finish out the day. And that sunrise in the morning and you got nothing to say. Oh, that's when I'll be headed on my way.